It's the old Doctor Who show, episode number 107, The Sea Devils.
Go forward in all your beliefs and prove to me that I am not mistaken in mine.
You couldn't control my mind before, and you certainly can't control it now.
Would you like a jelly, Toby?
The TARDIS, when working properly, is capable of many amazing things.
Reverse the polarity of the neutron flows, and the TARDIS will be free of the force field.
Well, the TARDIS is more than a machine. It's like a person.
The resulting reaction is Are you ready?
Hey, welcome back to the old Doctor Who show, your tri-weekly classic Doctor Who review podcast. We are talking to you, or at least I'm talking to you, as the gentle New Jersey snow covers this cesspool of a county. I'm talking about you, Mom of the County. In a light dusting, the devil's dandruff. Dan, how are you today on this Sunday of all Sundays?
I am doing quite well. We too are getting a
smattering.
It's big, fluffy, glow in the dark snowflakes coming here in New Jersey.
Yeah, because we've had a lot of snow, and if you're anything like me, every day is painful because your back hurts all the time from all the heavy lifting of the shovels. But we're not here to talk about...
Welcome to your Snowcast.
Yeah, we're not here to talk about Snowcast. We're here to talk about WANDAVIsion. What's happening in the world of WANDAVIsion?
Are you watching it or not?
Of course I am. I'm a big fan. I like it a lot.
I love it. I love everything about it. I think everything
it's very good.
They were wise to release the first two episodes back to back, drop them at the same time, and then do the weekly thing. I think it's great, even though I want it all at once because now it's getting really crazy. Like the plot's building up, and I guess I knew that you were talking about it because the twins and all that. It's kind of anyway. It's so interesting. I love it.
It makes me want to. I am not. I'm obviously a comic book fan.
Wait,
obviously.
Wait, how do you mean?
But the period of time, like when I hit my mid-20s, I would say, I sort of fell off and I didn't get back into it again until my late 20s. So I guess it wasn't a big window that I wasn't involved, but I feel like I missed, and at least especially at that time I wasn't really reading Marvel stuff or anything, but so I missed all of the Brian Michael Bendis era of Marvel. You know, I never read Alias, which is what, Jessica Jones came from and all that. And I never read Avengers Disassembled, and I never read House of M. But now I really want to, because it seems like a lot of WandaVision is being drawn from that particular storyline. And while we're talking about it, which is very interesting, I'm just going to railroad right over you, Dan.
Please,
I found a Elizabeth Olsen interview from the Avengers Age of Ultron press tour, where they ask her, and they're like, hey, what would you like to see happen with Wanda in the future? And she specifically mentions the House of M storyline and about... Actually, I don't want to spoil it, because if anybody hasn't either read House of M or is watching the show. But you could Google that if you can find it. It's kind of... She sort of predicts what seems like is happening on the current show way back whenever that movie came out. But you were going to say something, Dan.
I was just going to say, I did the exact thing that the publisher was hoping I would do. I had started a free 1-week trial of the Marvel app where you can just read everything, because I wanted to read some of the old stories. I actually wanted to read Young Avengers. I just read a lot of good stuff about it. Prominent queer characters in it, which is really cool. But then I didn't really realize that Wiccan was... And spoilers, the son of Scarlet Witch and Vision.
There you go.
Which is kind of cool. And then twin brother thing. So that's all kind of come together, which, you and I were talking about that a little bit. It was like, well, what the heck's happening? So now I got to go back and read House of M.
Yeah,
I already paid for a month, and I set a reminder to cancel it, and then I just didn't do it. I'm like, I'll just keep it.
If you keep it, you should probably read House of M. Or if you really want to go back, I believe the Avengers Disassembled sets up what occurs in House of M. But it's also like, I'm also very old school, so it's like, for me, I don't think these are spoilers. This is stories that are decades old. But like, it's like, oh, Quicksilver and Wanda are the children of Magneto. That's how I always knew it. But I think since, like, in modern Marvel, that's no longer the case. Like, they're not. So I think that maybe that's been changed. Like, they're always changing stuff.
Do you mean, like, in modern Marvel, as in the cinematic?
As in, like, the last... when I say modern Marvel, I'm referring to the last 30 years. Because for me, it's like, the 90s and then the 2000s is sort of the end of what I realize, and then whatever happened after that is considered Marvel. And now we're in 2021, and we're talking about at least 20 years between now and 2000, but that's a whole other
Well, the reason I
topic.
ask is because, like, it's interesting. So in the most recent episode, spoilers, this is not that show, so you shouldn't really care, listener. But
don't say anything.
Well,
I don't want to spoil.
The person that shows at the end.
Yeah.
There's a reference to recasting the person.
Yes.
So there's the thing.
I think you gave a little too much away already.
Well, but the person, whatever, it doesn't say. But I wonder how much of that plays into the whole, Sony owning X-Men for a while Marvel was building up the Avengers. So that's why they couldn't use the back and forth thing.
Dan. It was Fox you're talking about. You're talking about Fox having the film
Spider-Man
rights.
Was Sony,
Was
right?
Sony, yes, that's right.
Yeah.
How dare you?
Anyway, I'm sorry, I retract everything. But I was just wondering, is that why the Magneto things haven't come up in the movies with Maximoff?
Oh, yeah, okay. All right, fine. Spoiler thing. We will skip ahead. I'll put in the show notes when you can skip to the actual Doctor Who thing. But yeah, we will lock down spoilers so we can talk. We will spoil WandaVision 100%, so you better fast forward if you haven't seen it. Okay, so to what I think you were saying was that's why a couple of things. So they undid her being a mutant in the movies because Marvel didn't have the rights to the film rights to mutants.
Right.
Which is why there was like a big
Stone instead.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's a big push to the Inhumans and all of that kind of stuff, whatever.
Which I don't know anything about the Inhumans, honestly.
That's like a thing where there's like a what's the stuff? You get exposed to this Terrigen mist.
Oh yeah. Okay.
That creates.
They were
this
doing
power.
a lot of
that's
that
like
on Agents
Black
of Shield
Bolt
was a lot of Inhumans. Agents of Shield was that.
That was like a thing came from Jack Kirby years and years ago, and they kept delaying it and trying to get it to work, and since then, every once in a while there'll be a big push for Inhumans, but it never seemed to really
not as good.
Catch. Although I like the characters that like Medusa's cool, whatever, it doesn't matter.
Anyway, go on.
So that's why you don't have Magneto.
Right.
Mentioned, or they don't talk really about it, but it's sort of like open in a way. But in WandaVision, I think for me it was like, oh, this is amazing because she has pulled the Quicksilver from the X-Men universe.
Yep.
Physically pulled him into this universe, which is going to create all sorts of problems, which is going to introduce Doctor Strange, is going to have to stop the multiverse of madness, which is going to allow them to bring in...
So this is what that's setting up, is now you think, theoretically, now that everything's under the same roof, they can start crossing things over, and in order to rectify everything between the three different production studios, Sony, Fox, and Marvel, now that's what the whole Age of Madness is going to help solve, bring these things into alignment. Plus, there's a whole multiverse thing.
Right, and plus there's stuff that's happening with Spider-Man, with all those multiverse things happening. But I think within Marvel, this is a good gateway to allow mutants to exist, because they never mentioned mutants before.
Right.
There's like some reference, I can't remember Submariner if he's technically a mutant, but there is one of those movies, Endgame or Infinity War, they talk about like someone in the sea creating a tidal wave or something, which I was like, oh, that's how they're going to get to Namor, whether or not he brings it in. But anyway, they never mentioned mutants before. This is probably a way, as opposed to her being recasting her brother, which itself is like a meta thing about TV shows that's how they anyway, but it also works.
I like that. Speaking of the sea, Eric.
We should, yes. Speaking of, perhaps the sea, good tag, Dan, to talk about the devils that exist in that sea. That was
Thank you,
pretty
everyone,
impressive.
for bearing with us as we stumbled our way back to
Yeah,
the
and I
show
could
that
have
we're here
honestly,
for.
I could have gone on a lot longer. And if you read House of M too, there's like, I should read House of M. I haven't even read House of M, but I've seen like people have said, oh, Wanda says this in House of M, and what if she says the opposite of what she says in the comic to get a different thing, and then it makes the thing, and then there's like the witch and whatever. It's all fine. Everything's good. Let's hit that button and get us out of angering all of our fans.
Ready?
Yep.
Just about to test it.
I've seen things like that in a modern art exhibition. You don't honestly think you can transmit with it, do you?
Certainly I do. I'll prove it to you. Right, here goes.
Hey there, early birds. We've got a wonderful batch of discs for you this morning. So don't feel isolated and cut off from the world. Whoever you are, wherever you are, we've got something just for you.
Hey, that was my favorite DJ.
I think I must have got my wires crossed.
This is the Sea Devils, Dan. This is the third serial from the 9th season, lucky number 9, of everyone's favorite classic science fiction series, Doctor Who. This is coming to us from 1972, and it was written by Malcolm Hulke, who we've seen now a few times, and directed by Michael E. Bryant, old crazy Bryant. What's he up to? Oh, get him a couple of hours of stock footage of the military, the Navy. See what he runs with. Yeah, this is a story about the Pertwee doctor who finds himself with access to the Queen's Navy, and they can do any number of scenes, and there's real Navy people and lots of exterior shots, and it's a wonderful adventure in which the master as a prisoner is somehow involved with a Bermuda Triangle-like disappearance of ships, and I didn't write this, so let's just get right to the thing, and you can just tell me what you thought of it, Dan. Let's just start there.
Let's
Joe's here. And
what?
Joe's with us.
Oh, Ms. Joe Grant. Well,
Yes,
I mean,
Ms. Joe Grant.
that's a highlight of the whole thing. It was a fine story.
Oh.
I was quite impressed with the variety of settings, the quality of the production design. When you're inside that floating
The floating fort.
decommissioned fortress thing, the claustrophobia that they were able to introduce there, while still making it feel like a large area but still tightly compact, like that felt really great. All the different scenes on the bases. I didn't know until afterwards that they actually had gotten Her Majesty's Royal Navy to cooperate enthusiastically with them. So a lot of extras were, in fact, military personnel, which was kind of cool. So that kind of lent a bit more grandeur and scope to having that access. But then on the downside, the Sea Devils looked like ass. They were just some of the worst costumes. And I'm talking about costumes. Like, they decided to put them in fishnet. They were wearing teal fishnet. And the prosthetics, the head, the mask, it looked like it was the mouth was being operated by a string. It was horrible. It just really upsetting. I don't know why it bothers me so much.
You
really,
sound like
really
it's like
upsetting.
I feel like we all should be drinking coffee and smoking cigarettes, sitting in a circle with the way you're explaining.
Well, I just need to share.
I got really messed up. I started hanging out with these guys. They lived underwater. I don't even know how I got with them. They're related to these other guys that live underground. They're the same species, but they look totally different. Why do they talk so slow?
So slow and so quiet.
An improvement.
but-
I mean, eventually I'll cover my thing, but I felt like the slow talking, quiet talking was a big improvement from the last time that we saw them with, I forget, was it Troughton? I can't remember. It was like one of the old black and white ones, I remember, and it was really painful how slow the talking was, but go on.
Yeah. Well, we saw them, the first time we see Sea Devils was in the 5th Doctor story.
No,
Orders
but
deep.
we what's the other
You mean
name?
the Silurians, though?
Yeah, but they're the same, right?
Well,
they say they're the same
related.
race, but there's different.
They're related. I mean,
Yeah, they say
don't
they're the
know.
same race, but there's different like species within that race, right? But
I guess.
But they
I mean,
talk the same.
it's
Like
not-
it was a painful,
Yes.
slow whisper that
Yes.
you're like, I just can't, I can't
This was
do
better.
it anymore.
This is better. Yeah, and then we didn't even talk about this. We have the master. We have the master the whole way through. And
Yeah, we do.
For once, the cover art for the show, showing the master at the very beginning, wasn't a spoiler because that's how the whole thing starts off, which was good. So the master is imprisoned after the events of the demons. When he took over a town, and they've now imprisoned him, or think they've imprisoned him. He's actually running the show there, with his hypnotism that kind of seems to work sometimes, and then other times just he can't do it at all.
Yeah, I mean
which
the
is super
thing with that,
frustrating.
the thing with that is I feel like when I saw that I was like, it kind of made me really dislike the psychic paper that was introduced later because it completely undermines his great ability that the master has to be the master over you. Like that's that's sort of his shtick, where he can look you in the eye, and for some reason the doctor doesn't realize that's what he's known for, and he just leaves them with army guys or navy guys or whatever for him to just take over, whatever.
Well, they do that a lot. I mean, that's the psychic paper thing. The whole
but like,
conceit
but
of
once
this
you have
run
the
is
psychic,
like,
right? Once you have the psychic paper, like that is like,
do
well,
everything.
okay, I could just do it with this psychic paper I bought at the sci-fi novelty shop, where I can do the same thing as you and pretend I'm someone else instead of him doing the. You don't need to see my identification.
Well, what I was going to say is it's so strange because I agree with that. It's so strange because the entire conceit of this run is that he doesn't have access to the TARDIS. They wanted to completely take away that thing so they could focus on other areas, just like they de-emphasized the Sonic for a long time because it became a crutch. So it feels like with the Master, the hypnotism is kind of the same thing. Like traded off one thing and then just relied on another thing as a crutch. But the fact that it's so wildly inconsistent in this story is kind of strange, but whatever. Anyway, so that's the basic setup. You got Jo. She is lovely. I love their chemistry is fantastic. I'm sure I've mentioned this once or 3,000 times before, but I like this pairing. Overall, so fun. Eric, what are your impressions of this story overall?
To lead off, I will say I just looked up like a Silurian appearances, and I can't find anything before Pertwee. And I have this weird memory of like Trouton in some kind of underground cave dealing with turtle-looking people that all talk the same way, and it was very slow and whispery. And maybe I made that up. Maybe that doesn't exist. Maybe there's another Doctor Who villain that also talks slow.
I think that's
an
what it is,
underground thing that I assumed were Silurians. Who knows? It's fine.
Yeah. What are the dangers of doing this out of order? You
yes,
keep them all straight.
it's all fine. Plus half of my brain is going like, because I love the X-Men, so I'm always waiting.
Still trying to bring it back.
Waiting for Magneto to show up. I loved this story. I thought the Sea Devil, all 6 parts were great. I liked it a lot more than I thought I was probably going to like it. I thought the music was amazing. Like
Let's
it's got
talk
this
about
really avant-garde sort of off-kilter musical score, and the music cues I thought were very smart. I thought the directing was great. There's lots of weird close-up shots of like people's mouth, like their teeth, and just like it's just very, very strange. I like how the Doctor conducts himself like he's bribing dudes for their boat. Like when he's leaving the thing. He's like, "Hey, if I give you $5, why don't you go find out where Joe Grant is?" And then he gets in his boat and he sort of steals it. And then she does the same thing. Yeah. I love Joe Grant, and I feel like the first couple of times we reviewed Doctor Who stories with her, I think it took me a little bit to warm to her, but now I love her. I think she's great. And truth be told, I also follow her on Twitter, and she seems like such an amazing, kind, generous person.
Aw,
I think it's probably colored my opinion, but I just like her. I think she does a really good job with the character. And I think my earlier criticisms were hers. I felt like there was a lot of screaming. She sort of was falling back into that screaming role, which was such like a hard contrast to East Berliz, who preceded her. So maybe there was some of that was what I was turned off by. She didn't really do that at all in this storyline at all. She was completely
self-possessed.
Awesome. She just had like a really good. Her characterizations were great. I thought the sound design, aside from the music score, which we should probably talk about separately,
for sure,
was just the use of like echo when you're in the fort and the characters are talking. It's echoey, and you really feel like you're contained and you're trapped and you're isolated. And all of the exterior
and the lighting
stuff
for that was
great. Yeah, I mean they have obviously you mentioned like the Royal Navy is all about the production, so they have access to hovercrafts. You see the hovercraft several times. You see real Navy soldiers and everything, and
they actually killed people. I mean, it was
real people were murdered. They were homeless or drug addict people.
They were privates. They
had to clean up the streets. But it had great exterior shots. The whole thing was good. I like the master. I like how he's visited like Hannibal Lecter, like it's time for us to talk, and he's behind his glass and he's sliding the case files over. So that was cool. There's a weird thing that happens when the doctor sees the master on the television, which has a Venetian blind.
Venetian blinds, or slatted blinds in front of it.
I guess we'll talk about that. And he mentions him being overweight. Or he says like something like, I feel like he put on some weight. And then the next time you see the master, he's exercising. He's on like an exercise bike, or he's doing like a rowing machine. I was like, what is that?
It's one of those bands that you wrap around themselves and they just like.
And I was thinking, because we are constantly jumping around. I was like, is this the first time we got Delgado? It's Delgado, right? Is that his name?
It is Delgado, yeah.
Is this the first time, and that's a joke because it's not the? But no, we saw him earlier in Terror of the Autons.
I think it was just a joke because he's been in prison for however long.
It was just weird. It was weird, and then they did the workout. I liked the. I'm sort of.
But wait, hang on. He was working out though in a full turtleneck. Yes. It was like the whole. It was very strange. Yes. Like he might as well have been in a cravat with like ruffly laced.
Just awesome. And I don't remember how he got caught. And I guess maybe he got caught at the end of Terror of the Autons. Was that the previous time we had last seen him?
No, it was the demons.
The demons. Okay. I can't remember.
Where they took over the whole town with the maypole celebration.
Yes,
they run over him with Bessie.
That's right. Yeah. The blonde military lady.
Yes.
Every scene that she's in the middle of a call, and she hangs up the phone, and then the scene starts. Like she's always talking, and then someone comes in and she hangs the phone up real quick.
She's actually.
I kept waiting.
She's doing phone interviews for a new job. She's doing a phone interview for a new job, and it's time. When someone comes in, she's like, "I can't talk now."
They kept doing it though, and I was like, "Oh, she's working with someone." So I thought it was like she was a double agent, or no? It was just like that was the action that she took, and it was like every single time that she was on, I thought that was a little bit interesting.
She's working for Shield.
She just
at the same time.
Yeah, maybe she's trying to get a job at a company that designs doorless cars because they seem to have.
I like that
at a steal.
Those are pretty good.
The doorless car that can't be comfortable.
Let's jump back to the music because it played such a huge role. Okay. Yeah, well, we can do that too. But the music, not just the incidental music, but the way that it was used. So I didn't realize why it was at the time. A little reading after the fact tells me, the internet tells me, so it must be true, that the budget for this story was astronomical. So they were looking for ways to cut back. So instead of doing their normal commission for a film score, they decided to have the BBC Radiophonic Workshop, who created the theme, do the score for this one. So it's Malcolm Clarke did this score for it. And what's interesting to me is it's not just the incidental music, which is just the kind of music that carries you between scenes or like conveys the emotion, but it was to the point where it was cartoony. Like anytime Liz was like, there was one scene she was outside and she's coming to. It's towards the end. The Doctor and the Master.
You mean Joe?
I'm sorry. Yes. What did I say? Liz.
You said Liz. Yeah.
I meant Joe. The Doctor and the Master are in that supply area. The Doctor's supposedly helping the Master build the machine, and Joe is creeping around the outside, and as she's walking, like every step is a bleep blop bleep blop bleep.
Yes,
like,
yes, yeah.
And she's going down up and down the ladder, and it's cartoony. It's
I
not
loved it,
just
though.
music.
Yeah.
It's strange. I'm not sure if I liked it or disliked it. It became distracting, but it was also interesting and kind of funny at the same time. I'm not sure.
I felt like it just gave the whole thing like a weird, unearthly feel. I didn't see it as a like it didn't make me laugh or anything. I just felt like it was like, oh, this is like a weird,
strange,
like a head trip. Like take two of these and then we're gonna get on a boat. I thought that was cool, but yeah, you're right. Like that, the way that they used it for each step, I can see how you
different than. So it wasn't a straight like, okay, instead of using like a full, woodwind and brass and whatever section that we normally use, we're just going to do it this way. But it wasn't that. It was different instruments. It was electronic and done in a way that just felt overall strange and different. And I know, I mean, and it's fine. Like I think a lot of people would agree with you, Eric, that this is kind of iconic and something they really liked.
No, I loved it, and I thought it worked.
Felt distracting and just way out of character, and maybe not the right appropriate. Doing this type of score might have made more sense in a different story to me, because this didn't feel like the kind of story that would benefit from it.
But I what I would push back there was I felt like I'm pushing back, Dan. I felt like the director and the music were working together. Like there's when one of the ministers comes in and he's demanding from the woman that's trying to get another job, probably why she's trying to get another job, that he wants more toast. Like he keeps wanting more. Like there's these little moments that are just strange. But like he's eating his marmalade toast, and the cat and it just goes to this extreme close up of his mouth eating marmalade. Like
he was saying something about how war is always murder, and it was just like this really weird, like animalistic shot of him.
Yeah, it was just, but like the weird off kilter music was matched by these weird,
I see what you mean,
off kilter close ups and angles and stuff.
Right.
But it didn't feel pretentious
in a way that seemed intentional.
Yeah, I don't know. I felt it worked as sort of like an arty type thing without feeling pretentious or weird. It just felt like, I don't know. It was more into my vibe. Dan, I was vibing on it more. But I want to talk about Hannibal Lecter again, because I'm looking through my notes and I made the comment like, oh, it was like Hannibal Lecter. But they also both use the pretend you're dead with the face of your enemy to get out of the situation. Remember, like the master does the exact same thing that Hannibal Lecter does, where they're rushing the body out, and then they reveal the face. Now, in this case, it looks like it's not the severed face of his enemy. It is, and then like I was like, oh, like when did he make that mask? And then I was like, he always has a mask. He always has a master mask in his back, kind of like like Zartan that had like the inside the actor's studio James Lipton mask. I remember that little Zartan figure you'd get, the G.I. Joe, and then it came with a James Lipton's face. No idea what I'm talking about.
You dreamt that one. No, you're right. That is funny. It's actually the opposite, because Hannibal Lecter put that skin mask on in order to get out, and instead. Yeah,
so Hannibal Lecter put the guy's face over it,
right?
Whereas the master reversed it.
The master put it on.
But clearly, this was an influence on
Thomas Hardy. Is that the writer of the Hannibal Lecter series? Yeah. Anyway, I think totally stole it from this.
Who is it? Not Thomas Hardy.
No, Thomas Hardy's the actor.
Yeah,
it's Thomas
and he
also
something.
Wrote all of this.
It's all Thomas. It all relates to Thomas. No, who is that?
Red Dragon.
It's Thomas something, right? Sure. Doesn't matter.
No,
Jonathan Demme made the movie. I can just tell you that. I can tell you that, guys. Thomas Harris. Tommy Harris, as we used to call it.
I was pretty close. Come on, folks. Give me anyway, so.
But that whole mask scene situation I thought was awesome.
With the hovercraft, though, I'm sorry. It does make so much more sense knowing after the fact that they had the military's cooperation.
Yeah.
But it's like,
bring it back.
Fudge did they get a hovercraft, and
which
they
is
kept
also
using
another
it.
reference to G.I. Joe, because there's the big hovercraft toy, which you can go back to Zartan, and then you can get right back to the Actor Studio mask. So it's all connecting, Dan. Every reference references another reference.
So who's the Baroness in this one? I'm not sure.
Reverse the polarity of the neutron flow. So we get that classic line when the Doctor is ready to end his life, end the Master's life, by reversing the polarity of the neutron flow, and they're both in their prison, and they're like, we're going to die right now unless you and I get out of here. Of which they eject themselves, and then they're just floating in the water.
Yeah,
it was a little convenient that they got picked up the way they did.
I would love to have been there for production the day when both of them had to put on those big suits and just float around in the sea. That they must have. Do you think they loved it or hated it? The two of them having to just bob around and pull their helmets off so they could wave to the they must have drank so much seawater.
Pretty cold.
It was probably freezing.
It must have been pretty cool. I liked it. I felt like as a 6-parter too, which is already
that's
pushing our limits of what we can handle. I didn't ever feel like, oh God, I got to make it through it. I actually enjoyed.
It was fun the whole way through.
All of it, and I watched 1 part one night and 5 parts the other day.
I watched them all back to back to back to back the way God intended.
Yep.
So there's some fun things that happen here. We get Pertwee in his Pertwee-ness.
Pertwee-esque.
We got the Venusian judo going on.
Yeah, you get some judo chops.
A bunch, which is a lot of fun. But we also get a sword fight. So right outside of where the Master's being kept prisoner, there's just cutlasses on the walls for anyone to have a sword fight if the mood strikes them. So they just have a nice impromptu duel in the middle of which is super fun. I mean, I love seeing them do this. It's as implausible as it could possibly be that Pertwee's an action star.
But he loves it.
Hello,
man.
Liam Neeson. He is so into it. It's fun to see. So to get that kind of character. So I always forget how much I love Pertwee.
He's great.
Do. They have these moments, and they do this with all the Doctors, where they temper the fact that the Doctor is this ancient, smart, genius level, able to kind of do anything, talk his way out of any situation. But they leaven that with his
weird flex
of him. Of what?
I was gonna say his weird flex when Joe is hungry and they bring her sandwiches. He takes the sandwiches from her just because he can, offers them to everyone else, and then gives them back. It was that was a strange.
He ate 3 in a row really fast and just scarfed them down, and then
first he yelled at her. He's like, "What do you think this is, a picnic?" And then he eats them, and then he offers them to everyone else, and then he gives them back. Just so she knows who's in charge.
It's that where and his
was that what you were gonna say?
Well, those types of moments, those moments where he is also kind of silly and bumbling, when they're on that fort ship in the ocean and they don't have a way to communicate, so they're going to take the broadcast system and reverse it so that it can be a transceiver, and
I like that part.
Screws it up and it sparks. Those moments, his facial expression, he's so expressive. So he has those moments. He has those warm moments with Joe when it's even he does something like this, but then with the picnic sandwiches. But then in other moments, it's just a look or a smile that he gives her, and you just they have a good chemistry
in
such a way that is so beautiful. I think I really enjoy his performance.
And there's there's nice moments when she thinks he's dead, and then the running up to him on the beach and all of that works. I thought worked really well.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I want to get back to the Venetian blinds a little bit. Actually, I want to get back to the Venetian blinds, and I also want to talk a little bit about the commander or whatever, the guy that's working with the Master secretly.
Yes.
Well, first with the Venetian blinds, come on, why did they even need that thing? And then the first time you see it, it's not so bad. The second time you see the close-up, you literally see the strings.
The strings. Yeah.
Why did they let that? I don't know. It felt it was come on.
Yeah.
You could have just had it turn on. You didn't need the Venetian blinds aspect of it. But that's a minor nitpick.
He was strange.
Why is the guy working with the master, I mean, I understand that there's missing boats, and the master convinces him that it's a foreign enemy, so he's going to help him. But why the cloak and dagger secrecy, hiding it from
the rest of the military?
The rest of the military, that he's hiding it from the doctor. When the doctor first comes and then he leaves, and the guy comes in, he's like, we fooled him. But, like, why is he keeping any of it secret at all? Like, why isn't he saying, no, these are actually a foreign enemy that's, like, I didn't understand why.
Right.
What was the purpose of any of that?
I mean, I don't know if they say this, but the only thing I can imagine is that it's, who knows who's been infiltrated, who can you trust in the military? We're going to do this on our own. I don't know. I
guess, but they don't really
maybe
play
to
up
some
on
level.
that.
No, they don't, because at first I just assumed that this guy was under the thrall of the master through the hypnotism.
Yes,
but then it
exactly.
wasn't at all.
And
that.
he wasn't.
On his own free will, which I think is better.
Yes, and that was what was, it was like, well, okay, if it's just going to be that, just have him. He can hypnotize people, so he hypnotizes them. But it's like, no, he was tricked, and then he finds out later that he's been tricked. He's like, you said that, because the master's real plan is to work with this group and have them destroy humans because he hates humans and whatever. He really just wants to get that shower massager ray gun, because that's quite a thing to have.
Oh man. Okay, so not speaking of that directly.
It's like a shower massager / those old timey flash bulbs. If you wanted to get your picture taken, you want to get your death photo taken.
They look menacing. I love the number of times that the doctor just kind of messes with the Sea Devils. Like, so the first time that they're being chased around that floating fortress ship, and they barricade the door and the metal doors so that they can't get in, and the Sea Devil's melting through the door, and he hooks it up to the electricity and like shocks him, and the guy just like screams and goes running away. And then later, they're being chased on the beach with the landmines, and he's just fucking blowing landmines up in front of the guy over and over again. And he just again screams. Like, doesn't kill him. He just like messing. And I imagine it's the same Sea Devil. Yeah. The poor guy's getting hazard pay. Has to keep getting back.
There's lots of gunplay. Lots of shooting, and that seems to be a staple. Yeah. More of the action spy stuff for the Pertwee era. But you have the doctor using a gun, and then he gives it away. Yeah. At one point, right? I think he uses the Sea Devil massager, and then he hands it to the guy after.
Right.
Because there's that whole other plot where there's the sub, and the guys that are in ties at one point, but then not in ties.
Yeah.
It
was a very formal sub.
Yeah. So the sub gets captured by the Sea Devils. Mm-hmm. And then the doctor's on, working with that crew at one point. So a lot of sort of things happening. As far as the story is, lots of different
little
pieces
threads coming together.
Yeah, but I thought it all worked.
I thought so too. I mean, for a 6-parter that really did have a lot going on.
2 hovercraft scenes. That's that alone. What happened? You paused?
I know. I wanted to see.
You're just thinking about the hovercraft.
I just wanted to see how long we could go with that. You feel free to edit that out. Sorry.
We both just realized, like, what are we? Why are we talking about hovercrafts again? What is happening? I don't know. Do you have anything else with the story? Did we cover all we need to cover?
One thing that I didn't quite understand. That the master needs the doctor to help him build this device that's going to be used to wake up all the other Sea Devils. This is just one group of Sea Devils that happen to get woken up because that base in the ocean inadvertently awoke them or something like that. Close enough. So he's helping them create a device that's going to wake up the rest of them. They're going to take over the world and blah blah blah. The master had sketched out the circuitry, what he needed to build, and then was going to use the equipment at the military base in order to actually construct it. But for some reason, he needed the doctor's help to do this. So there's that part, and the fact that he trusted the doctor to help him actually construct it. I don't see, did I miss something? Why did the master trust that the doctor was actually going to help him build this device properly and not do what he obviously and ultimately did and create a booby-trapped version that would... Right. Where was the motivation there?
I mean,
I missed that.
I think you're supposed to just understand that the doctor is I don't want to say better, but smarter at certain things that the Master isn't when it comes to this technical stuff.
Sure.
And he knows he does need them. And on top of that, and I think more importantly, you establish that they used to be really good friends. So there's like a level of trust. Yeah,
the doctor. The first time this is mentioned.
The doctor says, at one point when the Master comes up, we used to be really close, and they talk about how they went to school together, which I loved, and I'm sure people have explored that to death. But I would love to see the Doctor and the Master at school kind of thing.
You see some of that in New Who.
Yeah, I'm sure it's been
with
explored.
the schism and the sound of the drums and all that stuff. Yeah,
but I feel like so there is sort of an element of trust and betrayal, whatever happening that.
I guess.
But it's weird, like right, because then when these Silurians come in, they're like, they say the quiet part loud, and they're like, "Do we kill him now?" Like right before he's gonna.
Right.
And the Master's like, "No, not yet." Well, but he's standing right there. Which was a little strange, but yeah, no.
I mean,
I hear what you're saying, but I feel like that's sort of.
And it's not as though like the Master was standing over his shoulder the entire time to make sure he wasn't doing anything fishy. Like he leaves the room, and that's when Joe comes over to the window. Like for the Master, this seemed really out of character.
And we saw that before, right? In another story with the Master and the Doctor working together. I know there's a Big Finish audio series. About Davros, I believe, where Davros and the Doctor have to work together to build something. But did we already see either in New Who or in one of the classics we reviewed them doing a similar type thing where they both have to work together to build something? I feel like that's a trope that, unless it is Davros, and I'm just thinking of the Davros story.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah. Well, if you remember, if this has happened before, please write us at TODW Show on Twitter or wherever.
But I mean that's it. I mean otherwise, it's a pretty straightforward story.
I thought it was
were great.
I rather enjoyed it.
The
Doctor had an LL Bean raincoat at one point, but I don't know at what point he had it or why I wrote that down.
Why you had to write that down? Well, I'm glad that you brought it up, though.
That's
the important
Thank
thing.
God we got that out of the way.
Yep.
Oh, and the ending is interesting, too, right? Because the Doctor spends most of the back half of this trying to broker a peaceful deal.
Yes.
When there's a chance to kill one of these Sea Devils, when he's with the sub crew, they shoot him, and he's like, damn, you didn't have to kill him. And then all of that builds up to the end where the Doctor literally kills all of them. By reversing the polarity and then blowing them all. So it was kind of interesting his entire goal is peaceful resolution, and he's actually the one that kills all of them.
I mean,
although I guess there's other pods that are asleep. They talk about how there's different. That's what the Master's building a laser that's supposed to awaken them. I didn't quite understand how they put themselves to sleep, but they don't know how to wake themselves up.
Something broke.
Something broke, and the Master's making his laser. Oh, speaking of the laser, the
Jewish space lasers.
The Jewish space laser. But they're working on the laser, and the Master's like, hey, let's try it out. And then the Doctor does the thing where it's making the sound which harms all of the Sea Devils. Yep. And then it allows Joe and the other guy, I forget his name, to escape.
Yep.
And then they come in after they turn it off. He's like, oh, the input was in the output. Now he's just guessing how much time they need. Whatever. Right. Then they come in. And then he's like, oh, I had the thing was wrong. And then they're like, is the laser ready? And at that point, he should say, no, we're just about to test it. And instead he goes, yeah, it's fine, let's go.
Right.
They make the plans to test it. They do it wrong, and they never test it. And it's like,
sure, that
just take 5 minutes and make sure it works right now.
You're 100%. That is a QA problem they really ought to address in the next sprint. But what I was going to say is... he does this. It's obviously causing excruciating pain as evidenced by all of them putting their hands on their heads and wobbling around. Oh, by the way, they're still running down the beach. The Sea Devils are running down the beach, clutching their heads and still shooting their massagers at people. One of them gets shot with a gun and does a forward flip and dies, which I thought was fabulous.
They
good
really
job.
didn't look that good,
job.
But I did like the scene of them all. That when the invasion happens and they're all coming out,
all
of, like,
six
the
of them,
sea.
all six of them coming out of the
all
water.
6 of them.
But then there's hundreds of them on the anyway. But what I was going to say is they're testing it. They're gripping their heads in anguish, and then they come into the workshop area, and they're like, "What did you do?" I guess it's fine. Oh, you just messed up. Don't do it again.
Right, and that's the guy.
So
at that
silly.
point, you'd be like, I don't want him working on this.
No, he doesn't seem like the best one.
And the
Someone
master
should check his work.
doesn't pick up on the fact that he did it on purpose either. Or he doesn't
No,
seem like he
no.
does. He's like,
Not at all.
Oh, the input was in the output? Okay, that makes sense.
That happens all the time. Who hasn't been there putting the input in the output?
Dan, now that we know what you thought of this and what I thought of this, what
is
did
this?
The people think of this? I know we have at least 2 emails and maybe some tweets to do, or...
We got tweets, we got emails, and if you all want to get in touch with us, you can tweet at us at TODW Show on the Twitters, and you can also email us at theolddoctorwhoshow@gmail.com. So from our inbox, the aforementioned Gmail address, we got 2 emails. First of all, our friend Chris C. writes, "Hi gents, my thoughts on the Sea Devils. The incidental music created by Malcolm Clark for Sea Devils adds an eerie atmosphere unlike any other Third Doctor's episodes. Many critics at the time didn't like it, but for me, it worked." So I'm all the critics, because I'm on the fence about it, but you're just like our friend Christopher, Mr. Eric. Other things I really liked and laughed over. The Doctor's sword fight with the Master.
Yep.
Agreed. Super good. The best... cliffhanger, episode 2, when the Master throws a knife at the Doctor's back. Oh, that was good. I like that.
I forgot that.
And when it comes back, it just kind of does the turn and the kind of mugs to the camera, which I loved. Next, the Doctor not being able to get enough of those little the little tea sandwiches. Yeah, sorry, I can't read English. It's my first language. That was just, he was gobbling them down and basically like spitting his way through his lines while trying to shove finger sandwiches. The bearded sub-commander with the twitchy eye. Oh yeah, that's right. This towards the beginning, and he's like, the Sea Devils are infiltrating one part of the submarine, and the guy in the tie is listening as all he's getting back is static, and it's just a close up on his one twitchy eye, and he's trying to listen to it. I actually noted that one. I forgot about that. Let's see. And what is with Parliament Secretary Walker's first order of business being to chow down? I see some fat that could be cut out of the government's budget.
Right, so much request for food. He just wants more and more toast.
But and it was fun. I mean, it was a funny little scene, like, and playing for the satire of it. But it's like a simple breakfast of like 20 items, which was it was cute. Christopher goes on to say, these are all gold, by the way. The Doctor navigating a landmine field with his trusty sonic screwdriver and laying over the not so sharp barbed wire so Joe could climb over him. Yeah, those are 2 good points. I think, we just watched in War Games the sonic screwdriver actually being used as a screwdriver for the first time ever. And now in this one, we're back to the screwdriver can kind of do anything.
Yeah, kind of doing everything.
But that is a good point. I forgot to mention, we didn't even talk about the fact that the Doctor threw his cape, didn't throw his cape down over the razor wire. He threw his body over the razor wire so Joe could climb over him. That is chivalry, my friends. You should take a lesson. Which is great. The Sea Devil doing a flip when shot. Oh, you mentioned the same one. A Sea Devil doing a flip when shot. What a ham. Yep. Hi, Mom. I'm on TV. Totally. Yeah, that was great. I rewound it and watched it a second time because it was so good. The Master's really bad rubber mask that always managed to fool everyone. Fair enough. And it's an episode or two too long, but the Sea Devils is a shining example of Pertwee, Delgado, and Manning at their best together in this series. I agree with that.
Yeah, and I would say, I mentioned it not dragging. You could easily trim 10 minutes off the entire runtime just from the previously on build-up. Like, you get at least a minute on each episode.
Yep.
Of watching the end of the one before. Much more than you usually get. It's like, oh, we're going this far back?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's at least could have been a 5-parter, if not 4.
Yeah. And Chris signs off, until the polarity of the neutron flow is reversed. Yours truly, Christopher. Thank you, Christopher, for that email.
Thank you, Christopher.
Those are all great points. I'm glad that you did that because we didn't mention some important things, so that was great. We have another email, but this is going back a little bit to War Games. This is from our friend Tim B. One thing I find cool is the fan speculation about what if Turlo didn't regenerate.
Troughton.
Oh, golly gee. Let's try this again.
I wish it was Turlo that regenerated.
I am so sorry. Let's try this again. Tim B says, one thing I find cool is this fan speculation about what if Troughton didn't regenerate to Pertwee immediately at the end of War Games. What if the Time Lords kept Troughton and used him as a time agent and he had a ton more adventures? Some fans use this to explain the timeline for Troughton we see in all the specials, 3 Doctors, 5 Doctors, 2 Doctors. Attached is a clip from BBC's TV comic magazine where Troughton adventures continue after the War Games. In these comics, he was exiled to Earth, but hadn't regenerated to Pertwee right away. Some fans have theories that there could have been other Doctors between Troughton and Pertwee. There's even a full fan-made story with a different Doctor. Look up Doctor Who Devious, where they got Pertwee to come back and record a regeneration scene.
I'm afraid of what would come up if you Google Doctor Who Devious.
Oh, keep your safe search on.
Yeah.
Keep your safe search. Do you guys enjoy this type of speculation, or is it too much? Tim says, I love it, although I gotta say the last season's Timeless Child plot really ruined these types of Doctor Who mysteries and theories. Okay, yeah.
I still have not gotten
we won't talk about that.
Although I'm
100% on board with that. They spoiled the mysteries.
Yeah, I'm 2 episodes away, I think.
They spoiled all the mysteries with that. You don't need to fill in all that stuff. But Eric, do you like this type of speculation, fan fiction sort of areas?
I like anything that is open-ended that allows you to sort of connect your own dots. I would much rather not know exactly how something is and be allowed to let my own sort of intuition sort of guide me on what I think it means than something that's completely like, this is exactly it, and there's no wiggle room.
Yeah.
I think that makes sense. I mean, so I guess the speculation is the first time you never see Troughton change, right? So he's just
floating.
See him
start to regenerate. But
yeah,
you don't
he's
see
doing
him actually
the Queen cover Bohemian Rhapsody thing at the end, and then we see I believe the TARDIS materialize and Pertwee fall out. So any number of things could happen in between those 2 points.
Yep.
So that
I think it's
cool.
Interesting. Yeah, that'd be really cool. Yeah, I mean, I like this. I love that as much as I love the mythology, and as they start filling in pieces, I would rather they start expanding the mythology as opposed to filling in the missing pieces. In that way, you're actually closing down the mythology by answering all the questions. Expand it by adding new questions and areas of exploration. That's why you're going to find the Timeless Child very interesting. Can't wait to you actually
the Doctor Who Devious thing sounds cool too. Is this something that full fan-made story with a different Doctor? Okay, so that's a fan-made story. I was wondering if it existed within this Doctor Who magazine, because I never really read any of the Doctor Who comics, but I'm always curious, especially. And I think Alan Moore wrote some, I believe.
Oh, really?
Way back when. I would love to check some of those out. I just haven't. I gotta buy myself some at some point.
Very interesting. So those are the emails we got. We also got some Twitter replies. Thank you, folks, for taking the time to reply to us there. That's TODW Show on Twitter. Just asking about what you all thought about the Sea Devils. Paul Paranoid says, growing up in the late 70s, that photo of the Sea Devils emerging from the water in my Amazing World of Doctor Who book made me desperate to see this story one day. This is good, but nothing can live up to my childhood expectations for that iconic image. And then there's a Simpsons gif of the Simpsons went there about the dolphins taking over the planet. I think that was a Halloween episode from way back in the day. I can imagine being very hyped about these stories and not having access to them for decades, and then they finally are available on VHS and DVD and now streaming.
This particular story, they were deleted, right? Was that the deal?
I don't know if this is one of the. I didn't see that.
I think, if I'm remembering correctly, the first couple, like this was around the time they started erasing everything, and I think and I'll look this up and edit it out, I guess, if I'm completely wrong. But I think they erased, some of the earlier ones got erased, and then they were able to get it from like a Canadian broadcast of the show and then converted it back over or whatever to sort of restore it. But I think this was like the beginning of them being like, just use that tape. Just that's where Trout is just completely decimated, like, you know, all of his stories. But I think
this is a children's show,
partially deleted.
Tape over it. No one cares. It's a kid's show. Brian on Twitter says the weird 70s electronic screen track. Brian says,
Yep.
The weird 70s electronic soundtrack made my dogs anxious, but I thought it was cool. Watching the sword fight late at night accompanied by that dated and incongruous electronica was like slipping into a strange dream. I think you kind of said something similar there. Yeah.
Well, I thought it was I didn't think it was dated. I think I liked it.
Well, there you go. Eric still likes it even minutes later.
I think it's good. I'm putting it on right now. I'm gonna start. Could you imagine like taking that soundtrack and then that's like some serial killer stuff where that's what you listen to like when you like walk down the street. Your whole world will change.
Yeah.
So that's what all of us should do. You find the soundtrack to this, put on a pair of headphones, and go shopping for bread or something at the supermarket and see,
or knives. Maybe go to the hardware
store. See how
store.
the whole world looks.
So you can find. Paul writes back to us again about the unit time dating. Of it being set in the very early 80s is forever displaced.
When you first said unit time dating, I thought it was like
a speed dating thing,
like a speed dating app or something. For like members of unit, like if you're trying to find, because you can't get out because you're always.
It's so hard. You're so busy. You
so like go to
you
unit
can't
time
talk about.
Dating.
You guys,
Hi, I'm the brigadier. Like you just have like his. Things. Go on.
Paul says unit time dating being set in the very, very early 80s is forever displaced by the master watching the clangers on the prison TV.
Oh yeah, that was so weird. Like and he thinks it's real, but he's like, is this like an alien thing? And he's like, that's a kid show. And then you're like, is this like a meta commentary on us watching this show? And they're like, you're watching a kid show, and he looks at the camera. But, that was like a weird thing.
I don't know why he needed to give the big wink to the camera, but that seemed over the top.
You're a grown man. And I'm like, you're right. I should be doing other things. And then I take out my Walt Simonson Thor omnibus that I'm reading late at night. It's because like, hey, this was written in 1983 for an 8-year-old boy. I'm loving it. Yeah. I am loving it. It's fantastic.
I bet it is. So he's watching a show called The Clangers, which we in America did not get, sadly. It looks like it was amazing. As the show stopped being officially broadcast in 1972, repeats were not common in the 80s.
Hold on, wait, can we pause again? I got to pause again on that. When you first saw the Clanger footage, were you like me, where part of you was like, is this supposed to be alien footage that he's watching of actual aliens? Or is it supposed to be him watching a kid show?
I thought it was supposed to be him watching a kid's show. I just thought it was something that they whipped together real quick for Doctor Who as a kid's show and not an actual show.
Yeah, I thought maybe they were going to be the aliens in the show. And having seen the Sea Devils, it's not that far off.
It could have been.
I'm like, oh, is this has got to be him watching a kid? Or is this like, the guy could have came in and said, that's Satellite 6. We found them floating. Like, it could have gone.
Oh my God, it could have been.
That point.
Satellite 6, though. That's good. Thanks.
What was that Dreamcast game? Satellite something with the
Satellite Station
with the woman, and she had like
Jet Set Radio and
Jet Set Radio. No, that's the one where they're on skates.
Yeah, I love that game. That was not the same thing. Okay.
I don't know at this point.
It doesn't. Who cares? David Richardson on Twitter says, "What's not to like? Pertwee, Joe, Sea Devils." The one and best Master Delgado. I can't disagree with all of that. I sign on to all those. He is my favorite master as well. That's what we got on the Twitters. So thank you very much for taking the time to write to us there. You'll be able to see all the GIFs that we post from this episode.
Space Channel 5. Space Channel 5 it was called.
That's it.
That's
Space
what
Channel
I'm
5.
thinking of. Not, yep. Okay, fine.
You guys can all relax now. Get off the Google. You're good. Eric gave it to you. Yeah. So that's it.
Yeah,
Eric, anything else you want to talk about? Do you want to talk about Marvel at all? Do you want to talk about
Probably.
Cool.
But I guess we don't want to spoil it. But yeah, you should look up though. You should look up if you've watched WandaVision and you sort of see where it's going. Check out the press tour interview from all the way back in Age of Ultron, because it's very interesting to see what she's, and it makes you wonder, like, you know, how much influence did she have, like, over the storyline that they went with.
Or how much did they have planned in advance that she was kind of aware of?
Well, I get the sense that she's a fan of the material and not that she knew that's where they were going to go.
Interesting.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Do you want another 20 minutes on this? Or?
It's fine. No, I think we're good.
Okay.
We're
All
good.
right.
I will send
everybody,
you that link,
like
though.
I said, you can get us on Twitter at TOW Show. Same on Instagram. You can also email us at theolddoctorwhoshow at gmail.com. You can also call Eric on his cell phone. His phone number is
my phone number is 732. No, I will not tell you my phone number, but you can, if you want to help Eric out, you can pre-order my book that's coming from me and Will Perkins. It's called Goblin. The window to order it from your local comic store is unfortunately closed, but that doesn't mean you still can't get it. You can certainly ask them. They can get it from Random House Penguin, or you can go to Amazon, or you can go to Target, or you can go to your
Or you can drop by Eric's house.
But yeah, pre-order it. If you have the $15, pre-order it, because the pre-orders are going to determine how much marketing money that they put behind it. So the more you pre-order it, rather than waiting for it to come out, the better. And I understand it's a lot to ask, but it would go a long way.
Yeah, everybody get on that.
Yeah. Yeah, if they think it's going to sell copies, then the whole world sucks, because it's like you can't sell a lot of copies unless it's marketed, but they won't spend any money on marketing it unless you sell a lot of copies. So you're sort of stuck in the middle
limbo.
with you. Me and Dan. What?
What's happened?
What? I don't know. I don't know what's happened. We sort of, I tried to self-promote, and I went right into the toilet.
That's fine.
It's all good.
We're good with that.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody. Well, until next time, I don't know.
Yeah. Be good, I guess. Or not.
Or don't.
Or
don't.
not.
We care.
Live your life.
Love you all.
Live your best life.
All right. Goodbye. What just happened?
I don't know what happened at the end, but I got very tired.
Early this morning, when you knocked upon my door, early this morning, when you knocked upon my door.